run, 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 run.
Color, for any visual medium, is one of the most effective tools you can use to tell a story. Humans have a natural reaction to color, and when used in the right way, it can get us to think and feel in specific ways. And I find it surprising just how well The Defenders does this. It follows the Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and the Iron Fist as they go up against the shadow organization known as the Hand and protect New York from their sinister plans. Though this series has its flaws, it was fun to see these four heroes finally come together in this epic crossover, which was helped along by how colourful everything was. Even if it did become a lot more muted toward the end. But it doesn't just use its colours to make everything look pretty, it uses them to represent themes and ideas and blends them together to give even the simplest of scenes all new layers of meaning. And it's why on this episode of the Storyteller's Notebook, a series in which I analyse the various storytelling techniques used by various creators in various mediums, I want to talk about The Defenders and the many different ways it uses colour. And yes, spoilers ahead. The first and most important thing the show does, and what any story should do in regards to its color palette, is establish the meaning behind each one. Of course, due to the nature of human psychology and culture, we already tend to associate certain colors with certain ideas and emotions, such as red with danger and anger, or blue with security and sadness. These connections often bleed into our interpretation of a story, and The Defenders acknowledges this, often using reds to emphasize the danger the characters are in, and giving more upbeat scenes a tinge of yellow. But it doesn't limit itself to just these meanings alone. The Defenders associates each of its main colors, red, blue, yellow, and green, with each of its heroes and the themes that reflect their characters. It does this not only through its highly stylized opening sequence, but also in the first few episodes by filling each of the scenes involving these characters and their specific stories with said color. It gives the beginning of the show a feeling of separation, as if these characters are living in completely different worlds. And to an extent, they are. They've led lives that are nearly polar opposites to each other, and now outside of Jessica and Luke, don't even know that the other characters exist. It makes great use of these divisions to create some pretty clever transitions, as different characters start to appear in different heroes' stories. This can be seen quite a few times, such as when Misty comes to investigate the apartment full of C4 found in the middle of the city by Jessica Jones. The lighting of the scene switches from the bright yellow of Luke Cage's world to the cold blue of Jessica's, showing how Misty has travelled from one hero's story to another, which is emphasized when we later come back to the staircase from the start of the scene and see that rather than staying in yellow lighting, it's tinted blue. When Luke interrupts Danny's interrogation of one of the Hand's workers, there is no distinct colour transition from green to yellow or yellow to green. It reflects how abrupt and out of nowhere his appearance is for Danny. And in episode 3, the way the four fight in a bright white hallway is a visual metaphor for the fact that they are surrounded on all sides by the enemy. It takes advantage of its colourful world to throw symbolism into its scenes in clever ways. These subtle cues are emphasized by how it establishes different ideas and themes for each colour. The main ones they symbolize are the ones we've already come to associate with these characters, and what they've each gone through in their respective series, with Daredevil focusing on the duality of being a vigilante, Jessica Jones on abuse, Iron Fist on addiction, I assume since I didn't actually finish it, and Luke Cage on the struggles of the working class. But it also builds on these through each of the main characters' first scenes. In Jessica's, she is abruptly brought out of her drunken slumber by a bartender, and later, after helping her friend have a bind, we learn she still has yet to start working again. In Luke's, he finally gets out of prison and is allowed to leave, with him commenting to his lawyer how he isn't going to try and start over, he's going to move forward. In Matt's, he is preparing for court when he hears trouble outside that is swiftly dealt with by the police, before he goes to battle a case to help get justice for a young boy who's been crippled by a company's negligence. In Danny's, we see him in the middle of a nightmare as he relives his return to Kunlun to find everyone there dead. We are given a sense of apathy, moving on, justice, and trauma respectively. These scenes add an extra layer onto our understanding of these colors and what they represent in regards to this series. By filling specific scenes with specific colors, it's not only able to give them specific meanings, but combined with what we've already assumed about them, makes those meanings even more complex and interesting. This can also be seen in how the show uses the color white and subverts our expectations of it. In the show, this color is associated with Alexandra, the central antagonist for most of the series. In her first scene, she is shown in a sterile white hospital, where she is getting checked for an unnamed illness. The doctor comments that their previous tests were already fairly conclusive. She goes into an MRI machine and the scene ends. This gets us to associate white with death, or at least the fear of it. It's an unusual choice, as white is usually associated with holiness, purity, and even immortality. The idea of it being a symbol of death is a shock that goes against everything we've assumed, at least for Western viewers. Just like how this unnamed illness is a shock to Alexandra, who, for thousands of years, thought she would be able to live forever. And the symbolism of death doesn't just stop with Alexandra, as the show foreshadows the deaths of many of its main characters early on by introducing them wearing white. Some even before the death connection had been established. The show subverts the traditional meaning behind some of its colors to add thematic depth to its story. But as fascinating as the show's use of individual colors are, what's even more interesting is what happens when it mixes them. For example, when in episode 4 these heroes are finally able to stop and get to know each other, the episode from start to finish is filled with vibrant reds, blues, greens and yellows, showing how their worlds have finally come together. Or in the same episode, when Jessica decides to leave, not able to handle all this mystical bullshit, Luke tries to convince her to stay. They have each other's colors behind them, Jessica with a small yellow light above her head and Luke lit up from the back by a blue one. The blue shows Luke's sadness at seeing Jessica leave, and the yellow implies that for Jessica, leaving all this behind is her way of trying to move on. And at the end of the series, after Matt's dead and everyone returns to their own lives, we get this shot of the city. We see these great big lights scattered across New York before cutting back to reveal the silhouetted figure of Danny Rand with his glowing hand. This scene shows how now the Defenders' worlds are no longer separate. They are one, and Danny's hand glowing at the end shows how they must all move on. Which is especially poignant since when I first saw this scene, I only noticed the red tower in the center and thought it was Matt in the darkness. I thought that he hadn't really died. And then I found out there's going to be a season 3 of Daredevil, but still. Though single colors can be incredibly meaningful in of themselves, you can create even more depth and complexity in a story by mixing them. Colors are an important storytelling tool, and The Defenders shows many of the subtle and clever ways you can use them. It can represent people, feelings, and even complex ideas. The ability to tell a story through visuals alone is something that makes film and television unique in the artistic landscape, and it's important to be able to bring together every little detail of the medium, especially color, in just the right way to tell your story. And yeah, those are my thoughts. I was actually going to include the new Death Note movie in this video as well, just because I noticed it did a lot of color-based stuff as well, specifically in using blue to symbolize danger and red to symbolize safety, which is the reverse of what you'd usually expect, but I decided to be a bit too much. And The Defenders was pretty cool, although I have to say there were a good few parts that just fell a bit drawn out. Also, holy shit, I cannot wait for Punisher. Oh my god, that teaser has me hyped. I mean, no offense to The Defenders, I really liked it, but I think the Netflix Marvel stuff is at its best when it's more grounded, so I like that they're coming back to that. Might even make a video on it, honestly. Could be an interesting topic. Anyway, tell me what you think, if you agree, disagree, why you thought of The Defenders, what your favorite color is, etc. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, and be sure to like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to come flag me. And hopefully, I'll see you later.